Okay, this is a little bit of a lengthy problem. It's lots of formula stuff, so try to stay with me on it. It says use the midpoint formula multiple times to find the coordinates of the points that divide the distance AB, point A to point B, into 4 congruent segments. So I drew that already. And so let's call this M. That's the midpoint. And let's call this P. And we'll call this, actually I'm not going to call it P. I'm going to call it Q1. So that's the first quarter. And I'm going to call this Q3. That's the third quarter, okay? It also relates to statistics down the road, but we'll leave it for that. It will work for us. So what we want to do is we need to pick some coordinates for A and B. But I want to come up with a formula for any coordinates possible. Well, that means I got to pick variables for it. So I'm going to call this x1, y1. And I'm going to call this x2, y2. Okay, there's my coordinates. Okay, that looks a little messy here. Okay, now we already know the coordinates for the midpoint. It says take the average of the x's and the average of the y's. Whoops, I didn't put the y there. Oh, that's junk. Forgot to divide by 2 on the x's. And so we already have this one. We already have the midpoint. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go to another screen and do the first quarter point, the Q1 there, okay? And then we'll have more space to do it. So I'm going to change the screen. Whoops. Okay, and so this is what we had. I'm going to blow it up here. But we had this here. So we're in the first half of that segment. We have A, we have Q1, and we have M here. Okay? And we know this is X1, Y1, and we know this is X1 plus X2 divided by 2. I think I ran out of space. I'm going to write the y's first so I can fit them in. Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2. X1 plus X2 divided by 2. Okay, so we've got that there. And what we want to do is call this, treat it like a midpoint. Okay, so that means average the x, average these with these. Okay, and that's just going to be lots of junky work, but we can do it. So let's do that. So we're going to get, let's average the x's. X1 plus, here's some more x's over here. There's some x's here, so I'm going to average those. X1 plus X2 divided by 2. And then I'm going to put that all over 2. You can do it for the y's, but it's the exact same process. So I'm going to leave the y's up to you to do because of this, for the sake of time and space. But then the y's are going to look the same. Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2, all divided by 2. So that's what the y's are going to look like. But we're only going to work with the x's for the sake of space. So the question is, it's an algebra question. How do I simplify this? Well, we're dividing by 2, so I'm going to rewrite this over here. X1 plus X2 divided by 2. And instead of dividing by 2, I'm going to multiply by a half. So this part right here, dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a half. And I know that this is over 1. So why don't I just multiply everything by a half? And remember, when you do that, you're going to get a half times everything here. And you're going to get a half times everything here. And remember, when you multiply fractions, you multiply the tops and the bottoms of each fraction and then simplify later. So I'm going to take that out. Whoops. Okay, and so let's do that. What's a half? What's a half times x1 over 1? Well, it's going to be 1 times x1, and it's going to be 2 times x1. So I'm going to get x1 over 2. Okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go 1 times everything here, which doesn't change everything, over, now I've got to go 2 times 2, which is 4. And I'd like to add those together. The problem is I can't unless they have the same denominator. So why don't I multiply this times 2, and whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the top times 2. And so you're going to get 2x1 over 4 plus x1 plus x2 over 4. Starting to look the same, but it's quite messy and I'm running out of space. So I'm going to advance another screen. And if I go back here, it was 2 over 4x1 plus x1 plus x2 over 4. So I'm going to have, everything's going to be over 4 here. 2x1 plus x1 plus x2. I just put everything over 4 because they're all over 4. Now I can simplify that. I'm going to get 3x1 plus x2 divided by 4. And you could go through the exact same steps and you'll get the y values. You can try it yourself and you'll get 3y1 plus y2 over 4 when you do the same work, but you just change all the x's to y's. This is Q1. It's coordinate. Okay? You can do an exact same exercise for Q3. I'm going to leave that for you to do, but Q3, if you try it and you want to do it right, it's going to look like this. Q3 is going to look like x1 plus 3x2 over 4. And then you're going to have y1 plus 3y2 over 4. The process for getting the fractions is exactly the same as I did for these guys right here. That process here will be the same down here, but you're going to see with the numbers you end up getting 3x2s instead of, and only 1x1. Okay? So I hope that makes sense.